Hello everyone. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Max. Maybe you've seen some of my videos where I've done covers of Metallica, Avenged Sevenfold, and Bullet for My Valentine. The purpose of this video is to show a tutorial of how to get tones and how I got my specific tone. This is also a series of helpful tips to help intermediate and beginner guitar players to help figure out their own tone and any questions that they may have regarding their tone. So, let's get right to it. Alright, this is my Line 6 Pod HD 400, and right now I have it set to my 1A setting, which is my studio modification, and I have all these are for my studio. Well, technically these four are for my studio, and this one is for my tuning. I can just hold it for tunes. And right now this is my clean sound. I don't have any effects, no distortion for this at all. And right here is my guitar out cable, which goes straight into my guitar. And then this one goes straight from my pod straight into my Metal Zone MT2 distortion pedal by Boss, which they make amazing pedals. And here are my distortion settings for this particular pedal. And I'll get to why they are the way they are in a little bit. And here is my Marshall MG100FX tricked out with my awesome Boss stickers. And here are all my distorted, or I guess I should say clean settings. As I mentioned earlier, I cut back the gain and I boosted the mids and I brought back the bass and treble just to make it a little bit more distinct and clean. And this volume, I don't really have it all the way up because you don't really need it all the way up. I brought it down a little bit to help take out some of the high end in the back, and it works pretty well. So, oh, and whenever I use this, I have this on clean setting. For my cab, I'm using a PV 4x12 cab. A lot of people, at least some of the people that I know, they usually get Marshall and Marshall or PV and PV. Maybe Line 6 and Line 6 or whatever. But I don't do that. I like to have a little bit of a variety. So I get a Marshall and a PV, and it sounds pretty good to me. And now for the microphone. The microphone is a Samson. It's nothing special. It's actually a vocal mic, and it works pretty well. I've been messing around with it lately, and hopefully it will sound good for this presentation. If not, then I guess I'll use my audio interface. Which brings me to my audio interface. This is a PreSonus audio box, and as you can see, I've got one cable already in. That's the one going from my Samson. And here are some of the settings. Don't know how well you can pick those out. My playback, input, and volume. Here is my guitar. It is a ESP LTD FX 260 SM, as you can plainly see right there. And I have two EMG pickups. One, I think they are both H4 passive pickups. And of course I have my Spider-Man guitar strap. And other than the pickups, it's standard factory hardware. I haven't changed anything on it except for strings, of course. Now that you've seen some of my equipment, I believe it is time to talk about a few things. Number one, the Metal Zone MT2. I am sure that you probably have seen some reviews online, if you've even heard some stuff on YouTube, about how it is the worst pedal to own for distortion. I find that it's actually not. It is a cheap pedal. Granted, it is a cheap pedal. But it's not a bad pedal. I actually love using it. So I would like to address this. It all depends on the guitar player. That's number one. If the guitar player has no idea what they're doing, then even on the most professional equipment, it would sound like mud. You have to figure that out, what goes into a good tone. And I'll show you what goes into a good tone. Because if you have a guitar player who just scoops the mids, cuts them out completely, and boosts the gain, then if he does that on the most professional pedals, it's going to sound like mud and garbage, and you won't be able to pick out the note definition. So I will go into detail about how I got my specific tone, and hopefully help some people either change their minds about the metal zone or help them get a good tone out of the metal zone. So, how do you get a good tone? As I stated clearly before, if you boost the gain and scoop the mids, you will not have tone definition. Your notes will just blend together into a huge mass, and it will not be able to be picked up, especially live. And if you use too much bass, you're using the same frequency that obviously the bass guitar and the drums are using live. So if you're using the same frequencies, you're going to be blending into them. I have done this before with my band. I have blended in with them. I have had people say that they could not hear what I was playing at all. And I realized I cut the mids and I boosted the bass and gain. So I dialed back the bass and gain and amped up the middle. And my sound was able to punch through and get clear. So that's my number one tip for all guitar players. That and use tube screamers or tube drives with distortion pedals. That's pretty much all the information I can give, because there is more than one type of guitar player out there. There could be country guitar players, it could be punk guitar players, it can be heavy metal like me. It all depends on your sound. These are just basic guidelines to help you develop your own style and tone. Okay, now that I have shown you all the settings and talked to you a little bit about pedals and equipment, now it's time to hear. So first off, here's how it sounds with no overdrive, no metal zone, on a clean setting from the pod and a clean setting from the amp. And this is what it sounds like. And this is what it sounds like when you add just the overdrive pedal, the metal zone. If you add this over top of the clean, this is what it sounds like. And now, to take off the metal zone, to put on the tube drive, here is what it sounds like with just the tube. And finally, here's what it sounds like with the tube and the metal zone combined together into one sound. Here's what it sounds like. Now, another tip that I have for guitarists is change up is that you have a little bit of wiggle room to use while you're playing. Some bands that I know of, like Metallica or Trivium, they have a predominant rhythm section, or a rhythm tone, I should say, and then they have other solo tones or overdub tones to go over top of it. So it sounds pretty close to the rhythm. It has the same core of the rhythm, but it has other extra added on effects to boost it a little bit, to make it sound a little different, to help with melodic solos or shredding solos, whatever you need. And that's what I've done with my pod. Now, the first helpful tip that I have for guitarists is get a tube screamer or a tube drive pedal. I am lucky enough to, with my Pod HD 400, it has a built-in tube drive into it. So I can turn that on and back it down a little bit so where it doesn't overtake the metal zone. And it actually boosts the level of the metal zone going into the amp, so it sounds fuller but clean at the same time. Tube screamers help with the overall punch that comes with the sound. Thank you for watching. I hope you have found this informative, and if you have any other questions or any other topics you would like for me to discuss, please hit me up in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching. Stay heavy.